But like most places like this, there's troubles in paradise. It's to do with a 41-year-old woman who's fighting to save the lake from pollution. Sounds like a symbol of salvation. But when I first met Sandra Good 20 years ago in a place called Death Valley, she was a symbol of Satan, the bedmate and lover of the ultimate architect of evil, Charles Manson.
We knew our backs were against the wall, and we had the balls and the heart to work for change.
In revolution, there's going to be death. It's inevitable. Manson never killed anyone. It's just hard to explain. He's a very brilliant, wise being. There's no man like him on earth.
Just last Monday, I had a sickening exchange with a woman who answers with a voice of Charles Manson, whose disciples of the devil massacred 7 people in 1969. You would like very much to see Charles Manson right now.
Oh, yeah.
Do you write letters back and forth to each other?
There's no need to communicate verbally.
Do you think you have some sort of sense of extrasensory connection with Charles Manson?
When I tune into life out there, when I'm walking and I'm looking at the sun or looking at feeling the force of life, you know, that you feel in the woods or desert or wherever you are in nature, and he's there. You know, he's there.
Sandra Good is an alumni of perhaps the most horrifying group that this generation has birthed, the Manson family.
Manson's on top of world thought and has been for a long time. It's just a damn shame that he's been held down, and the longer he's held down, the more hellish things will get in this country. You know, if you're smart, if you care about anything, you work to get him out.
Today, Sandra Good breathes the clean, fresh, free air of Vermont. 20 years after her lover, Charles Manson, and her murderous friends in the family condemned actress Sharon Tate, her unborn child, and 6 other humans to eternity.
Manson never killed anyone. He's cut people. I mean, he cut a guy's face. He's been in fights, but he's never killed anyone. That's the fact.
Do you think he had anything to do with the Sharon Tate murder?
He had something to do with it in his presence in our life. He did not order the killings. He did not plan them. He did not execute them. You might say that he was a catalyst in our waking up.
Sandra Good's cool detachment from the horror of August 9th, 1969 is only matched by the white heat of the perverted massacres and the man who engineered them.
He's whatever a person wants to make of him. He's a mirror, actually.
By a mirror, what do you mean?
A reflection of yourself.
That was Sandra Good 20 years ago with Lynette, Squeaky Fromme, and Sandra's child, the child that Charles Manson fathered. Fromme is now in jail for trying to assassinate then-President Gerald Ford. Fromme and Good are bosom buddies.
She's one of the finest women in this country.
In the fall of 1969, a dark cloud crept across the Hollywood landscape with the arrest of Manson and his terrible tribe. A frightening saga unraveled.
Manson spoke constantly of death. He said he'd rather kill a human being than a bird or even a rattlesnake. He said everyone had to die either in their head, the killing of the ego, or out in the streets. The songs he wrote contained frequent references to death. Where did he take his family after these murders? Death Valley. He had a morbid preoccupation with death and murder.
They had planned to swell their message of death. Frank Sinatra, Liz Taylor, Steve McQueen, all marked for murder by the family. What does Good think today?
We were part of a solution. We were a reaction, not Manson, us. We were a reaction to a grave situation in our country, and now we're a solution. We're part of a solution. Had we been given a fair trial, had Manson been allowed to speak without being dissected by the media and you know what I mean, distorted, had the truth been allowed to come out, we would not have the seriousness of world problems that we have now.
The fair trial that Sharon Tate got was a noose tied around her neck, a knife through her stomach, her unborn child killed, 4 of her friends butchered. And then there was the murder of an elderly couple, the LaBiancas. Although Squeaky Fromme and Sandra Good were not implicated in the murders, they would find their way to jail on their own.
Prison is also a state of mind. I walk around and I see people more locked up in their thinking than I ever was in prison. In other words, I was freer in prison, even though my body was locked up, than I see the majority of people.
When Squeaky Fromme was arrested for the attempted assassination of President Ford, cops raided the apartment she shared with Sandra Good and found 3,000 letters written by Good threatening the lives of the country's top industrialists if they didn't stop polluting the environment. Sandra Good served 10 years in prison.
Women's prisons aren't as bad as the way the men are having to live. In other words, I didn't have to undergo the intense hardships that Manson's forced to undergo. I treat him worse than, when you talk about a political prisoner, that is your #1 political prisoner.
She was eventually paroled to Vermont in 1985, where she immediately took up the stated Manson family cause of the environment. Love of the lakes, love of the trees, and love of animals. It's a pity Manson didn't feel that way about human beings. Anyway, the real reason why she came to Vermont was because authorities didn't want her to go to California, where she wanted to be next to her beloved Charlie. You refused parole at one stage, didn't you?
Yeah. Yeah, I said I didn't want out until the Manson people got a fair trial. And I also didn't want to be released to a place where there was a lot of pollution going on. I didn't want to have to be put in a position to have to deal with the pollution. I wanted to go to a little town, specifically where Manson was incarcerated, and they wouldn't let me go. It was my right to go.
I think they feared. In fact, I think authorities did say they feared that if you were close to Manson, they could expect more violence.
I had never been violent.
Once again, you've judged a reflection of yourselves. Your children will rise up and kill you.
You know, 20 years ago, in Death Valley, you probably don't remember this, but you and Squeaky Fromme,
Red.
you and Red, Squeaky Fromme, threatened to kill me.
Oh, yeah? Very interesting. What did you do bad?
I think I asked you a question.
I don't believe that. Can you produce a direct quote? Can you show me?
You were carrying, I think, at that stage, Charles Manson's child. And then both you turned around and said, do you want to end up like the rest?
Okay. I don't see any threat to your life there. I don't recollect that, but I don't deduce from that a threat to your life.
One day after court, she and Squeaky snuck up behind me and threatened that they were going to do to my house what was done at the Tate house.
Stephen Kay was a co-prosecutor on the Tate murder case. Coincidentally, Kay has known Sandra Good since she was 15 years old.
She is very manipulative and very clever, and certainly capable of doing most anything, although we have not tied her into any violence. She's always been too smart to get herself personally involved in any act of violence.
These days, Sandra Good says she devotes her life to the environment, campaigning against industrialists like the nearby International Paper Company. If Charles Manson was free today, what would his attitude be towards the paper mills?
Well, as a natural being who loves life and loves his own life, he's a complete being. desires to preserve all the life on the planet. And this is what he's been yelling at you for 20 years.
I was with Sharon Tate weeks before her murder. She also talked about her love of life. What are you going to tell Sharon Tate's mother?
That is a silly question. I'm going to tell Sharon Tate's mother, look at your mother, look at your Mother Earth. What are you doing for it? Her husband worked for the CIA. Say, ask your husband how many coups did your husband help to engineer? How many human lives were lost because of CIA activities?
Sandra Good was tired of my questioning.
I think you're ending the interview.
Particularly because I couldn't grasp her message about Sharon Tate's brutal murder.
Keep focusing on that because you can't face the horror that's coming. The horror that's coming is going to make all that look like a little child's birthday party, and I swear to God that's the truth. So you can dump on a little family of people that wanted to change the system that murders people, that rose up to show you what you do as a system.
They murdered people to change a system that murdered people. I'm trying to understand that. Could you explain it to me?
Work on it.
If you could explain it to me.
Work on it, my child.
If you could just explain it to me.
Oh, you're going to have to do some of your own thinking. It's going to get worse.
There'll be more Manson families?
You know what? It's going to come down on your head, too. You're going to be praying. You know, you're going to be going through all kinds of things. You're going to be going, how could this happen? Where's the water? Where's the air?
As a matter of fact, I think that's what Sharon did at the night of her murder.
What are you going to do when the water...
She was praying. She was praying for her...
She was stoned on coke. What are you going to do when the...
She was stoned on coke?
What are you going to do when the air and the water...
She was praying for the life of her and her child.
What are you going to do when the water runs out? You're no dummy.
You could explain
You got to quit playing games with yourself and quit playing games with the public. You can figure some out. Or go ask Manson.
But don't talk about the Sharon Tate murder. Don't talk about the Sharon Tate murder.
When you want to talk about killing that's part of a revolution, you'll get some answers.
But don't go to the house of LaBianca's.
Well, I don't think anybody's there. They're dead.
The beauty of Vermont, where I had trod earlier, soured with ugliness as I realized I was walking in the footsteps of Charles Manson.